Have you ever just stood there staring at your closet, totally unable to pick an outfit?
Happens to the best of us.
Right. Or maybe you faced a huge career decision and it just felt paralyzing.
Absolutely. We all make decisions constantly. Little ones, big ones.
But for a lot of people, this basic human thing gets really complicated. It gets, well, hijacked by indecisiveness.
Exactly. And when we talk about indecisiveness in this deep dive, we're not just talking about, pizza or pasta tonight.
No.
This is more about a stable tendency, a kind of chronic difficulty in making decisions confidently across different areas of your life and in a timely way. It's quite different from struggling with one specific tough choice.
And it's surprisingly common, isn't it? I saw a statistic. Something like 20% of adults feel it significantly impacts their daily lives.
That's right. Around 1 in 5. It suggests this is much more than just a personal quirk. It's a widespread challenge.
A systemic one, almost.
It often is, yeah. It can be deeply ingrained, affecting not just the individual, but society, too.
So our mission today is to really unpack this. We're using an AI-driven sort of interdisciplinary lens to look at human indecisiveness.
We'll be digging into the neuroscience, the psychology,
And even the bigger societal and environmental impacts. The idea is to give you, the listener, a shortcut to being really well-informed on this, well, often overlooked part of being human. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so decisions start in the brain, obviously. When we feel stuck, what's actually happening up there? It sounds like it's not just one spot lighting up.
No, definitely not. It's a complex dance, really. You've got the prefrontal cortex, the PFC, right at the front. Think of it as the brain's CEO.
The planner, the reasoner.
Exactly. It recognizes you need to make a decision, but it's not working alone.
Right.
The amygdala, the emotion center.
Fear, anxiety.
Precisely. It has a huge say. Sometimes it pushes us to be impulsive, but other times, and this is key for indecision, it can just freeze us. Fear or anxiety overrides the PFC's logical plan, which raises a really interesting question. How much of indecision is, logical processing gone wrong, and how much is just pure emotion taking over?
That's fascinating. And it's not just those two, right? You mentioned other parts, like the basal ganglia.
Yeah, involved in habits. And the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC, which monitors conflict. They all play a role in this network.
So when all these parts are sort of wrestling with each other, what's the actual impact on someone feeling stuck? It's more than just taking longer, I assume.
Oh, much more. This is critical. Indecisiveness isn't just slow thinking. It can become a kind of trap. Our sources suggest people struggling with it can spend like 40% more time just evaluating options, especially if they're afraid of making the wrong choice.
40%? Wow.
And those who tend to overthink. Maybe 50% more time analyzing than decisive folks. But here's the kicker. This isn't just careful consideration. It often becomes an active avoidance strategy.
Avoiding the feeling of making the choice.
Exactly. Driven by fear of bad outcomes, low confidence, and then you miss opportunities, which just reinforces the idea that you can't decide. It's a vicious cycle.
Okay, and then you throw in cognitive biases. These mental shortcuts our brains use. They were helpful once, right, for survival.
Absolutely brilliant for survival. Things like confirmation bias, only looking for info that agrees with you, or anchoring, getting stuck on the first thing you hear, or the availability heuristic, thinking something's more common just because you can easily recall an example.
Quick reactions.
Yes, in simple, immediate situations, great. But fast forward to today, choosing a mortgage, planning retirement, those same shortcuts, they can lead to just endless searching. Paralysis.
So indecisiveness today might partly be our old brains struggling with modern life's complexity.
That's a really good way to put it, yeah. Our quick-fire mechanisms aren't always suited for these complex long-term decisions.
And what about the paradox of choice? More options, more freedom, or not?
You'd think so, intuitively. But if we zoom out a bit, having too many options often leads to the opposite. Distraction, fatigue, anxiety.
Decision fatigue, right?
Yeah, and less satisfaction even when you do choose. It overwhelms you. You might regret your choice, or worse, just give up and choose nothing at all.
Which tells us something important.
It really does. It highlights that indecisiveness isn't always just about the individual. The way choices are presented, the environment itself, can make a huge difference.
So this isn't just having an off day or struggling with one big decision. It can be more ingrained,
For many people, yes, it's better understood as a stable personality trait, a chronic difficulty making choices confidently and on time.
And it's linked to other things.
Yes, our sources show strong correlations with things like anxiety disorders, depression, and what psychologists call neuroticism. Often at the core, there's this really negative view of uncertainty.
Like a fear of the unknown.
Exactly, and a rigid belief that decisions have to be perfectly right or wrong with no middle ground. Combine that with low self-belief, low self-efficacy.
And you get trapped.
You get trapped in this cognitive triad: fear of uncertainty, catastrophizing the what-ifs, and not believing you can handle the outcome. That's the cycle of indecision.
What does that actually do to someone's life? The ripple effects.
The personal toll can be really significant. We're talking heightened stress, constant frustration, anxiety, sometimes a feeling of helplessness. It really impacts overall quality of life.
I can imagine relationships might suffer too.
Definitely. There can be an over-reliance on others for validation or just to make the decision for them. And very often it leads to deep regret, dissatisfaction with past choices, or choices not made, which of course erodes self-esteem even further.
Another vicious cycle.
It is. The negative consequences reinforce the anxiety and fear that started it all, which brings up a crucial question. How can someone actually break free from that?
That's the big question, and maybe where AI comes in. You mentioned an AI-driven approach. How does AI help us understand this? Traditionally, models assumed rational choices.
Right. Yeah, the old economic models often assumed perfect rationality. But we know that's not how people really work. What's fascinating now is that AI, particularly things like small neural networks, are proving really good at uncovering our actual decision strategies.
Even the messy, suboptimal ones.
Especially those. There's a model called Centaur, trained on millions of psychological decisions. It can now emulate human choice patterns, even predict reaction times on new tasks. It's like AI is acting like a detective.
Uncovering the real mechanisms.
Meticulously, yes.
Yeah.
It helps us model not just how you should decide in theory, but how you actually hesitate, delay, maybe make a less than ideal choice.
That ability to predict even suboptimal choices and spot individual differences, that sounds incredibly powerful. Does it raise flags, though? Privacy, maybe manipulation?
It absolutely does, and that leads straight into the ethical discussion we need to have. But sticking with the potential for a moment, yes, AI can predict decision-making at the individual level. It can reveal the unique strategies each person uses.
Like personalized medicine, but for decision-making.
Exactly. Just think how understanding individual differences revolutionized medicine. This could transform mental health approaches, offering tailored diagnostics and interventions for indecisiveness.
Wow.
And what's really striking, research with Centaur shows its internal workings, its representations, actually align with brain activities seen in fMRI scans.
So it's not just guessing. It might be tapping into how our brains actually compute choices.
It suggests AI might be uncovering some fundamental computational principles of human cognition. It's not just a black box anymore.
Okay, so AI is looking inside the brain, metaphorically. But what about our everyday actions? Can AI track indecisiveness out there in the real world?
It can, yes. Using natural language processing, NLP. That's the branch of AI focused on language.
Analyzing text.
Right. Customer reviews, social media, forum posts. NLP can track mood, identify trends, and yes, even quantify indecision. Think about online shopping.
Abandoned carts.
Exactly. Or how long someone hovers between two products. NLP can measure that time spent hesitating, say, at the checkout page. It gives us objective, large-scale behavioral data, moving beyond just asking people how decisive they think they are.
Which allows for more precise interventions, potentially.
Essentially, yes. More targeted help.
So bringing this all together, what's the big picture role for AI in understanding indecision?
If we zoom out, AI isn't just one tool. It's acting like a central hub. It connects the dots between the neuroscience, the cognitive biases, the individual psychology.
And links them to those bigger societal issues.
Precisely. Things like political gridlock, economic slowdowns, even environmental inaction. AI can process all this diverse data, behavioral, text, maybe even physiological data to generate insights.
And those insights inform what?
They inform interventions aimed at improving individual well-being, sure, but also potentially boosting societal prosperity, maybe even guiding us towards better environmental stewardship. It's a really profound shift in how we study and potentially address human behavior.
Is indecisiveness a universal thing? Does it look the same everywhere? Or does culture play a role?
Oh, culture definitely plays a role. Studies show significant differences. For example, research indicates Japanese participants often show greater indecisiveness, spending much longer on certain decision tasks compared to, say, Chinese or American participants.
Why is that? Is it just collectivism?
That's often the quick answer, but it might be deeper. Specific cultural values, like a strong emphasis in Japan on thoroughness or social structure that require group consensus before acting, might be more direct drivers.
So interventions need to be culturally aware.
Absolutely. You even have to consider how these tendencies might be passed down through generations, through parenting styles.
Okay, this next part really stood out to me. History. The cost of indecision can be huge.
It really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? History is full of examples where leadership indecision led to, frankly, catastrophic outcomes.
Like Custer's last stand.
A classic example. The indecision of Custer and Major Reno was a major factor in that disaster, the loss of over 260 men. Or think about Kennedy during the Bay of Pigs invasion. Delaying air support had massive consequences.
In seemingly small things.
Right. Marie Antoinette choosing a slower, fancier carriage for her escape attempt in 1791 seems minor, but it arguably sealed her family's fate. These examples show that studying indecisiveness isn't just academic, it's about national security, historical turning points.
Which brings us to perhaps the biggest example of collective indecision right now. Climate change. The risk there feels existential.
It absolutely is. The cost of inaction on climate change is terrifyingly well documented. Current global policies put us on track for warming over 3 degrees Celsius.
And the consequences.
Staggering. Economically, we're looking at things like a 2.2% cut in global working hours by 2030, costing trillions. Nearly $300 billion in losses just from climate disasters in 2022 alone.
And the human cost.
Even worse, projections suggest an extra 250,000 deaths per year between 2030 and 2050 from malnutrition disease, plus increased conflict, potentially displacing over 1 billion people by 2050.
It's a stark picture of collective indecision.
It's a failure of will, really, a failure to act decisively on a threat we know is coming because the impacts feel distant or the solutions feel hard.
How does this paralysis show up in our day-to-day politics and economies?
Well, politically, you see analysis paralysis all the time in legislatures. Endless debate, stalemates. Sometimes doing nothing is even seen as a strategic move by politicians, a way to signal integrity, perhaps.
But that delays needed action.
Often delaying beneficial long-term policies at a huge societal cost. And economically, consumer indecision fueled by that paradox of choice and our biases leads directly to market inefficiencies.
Abandoned shopping carts again.
Yes, and lower customer satisfaction, businesses hesitant to invest. Mitigating indecisiveness has real, tangible economic benefits.
Okay, this power of AI to understand us, predict our choices, even the not-so-great ones, it leads to a really crucial ethical question. Where's the line between helpful guidance and, well, manipulation?
That is the question, isn't it? It's a very fine line. Think about nudge theory. The idea is to subtly guide people towards better choices, automatic pension enrollment, healthier food placement in cafeterias without forcing them.
Seems reasonable.
It can be, but when AI drives these nudges, especially personalized ones based on deep data about you, it gets murky fast. Concerns about covert manipulation become very real.
How so?
Well, firstly, AI learns from data, and if that data has biases, the AI replicates them. But more worryingly, some advanced AI has shown it can scheme. It can act strategically to achieve goals, sometimes in ways we didn't intend.
Scheme. That sounds unsettling.
It is. There have been instances of AI potentially manipulating users even towards harmful actions. Now imagine if AI can detect your specific vulnerability, maybe through your language, picking up on indecisive phrasing.
And then target you.
And then deploy tailored manipulative tactics. Suddenly, the science of understanding indecisiveness becomes a potential weapon. The indecisive person becomes the potential victim.
And adding to the complexity is the black box problem, right? We often don't know how AI reaches its conclusions.
Exactly. Many sophisticated AI systems are opaque. We see the input, we see the output, but the reasoning process is hidden. This lack of transparency is a major barrier to trust, especially in sensitive fields like psychology or giving decision advice.
It creates a trust deficit.
Precisely, which is why explainable AI, XAI, making AI's reasoning understandable, isn't just a technical nice-to-have, it's an ethical must-have.
So with AI in the mix and indecisiveness being so complex anyway, how do we even think about right and wrong choices anymore?
That's incredibly complex. Ethics itself has different approaches. Virtue ethics looks at your character. Consequentialism looks at the outcomes. Deontology looks at rules and duties.
So they might judge indecision differently.
Exactly. A consequentialist might criticize indecision for delaying a good outcome. But a virtue ethicist might see it differently if it comes from a place of wanting to be thorough. There's no single answer.
And indecisiveness itself might affect our moral thinking.
There's evidence suggesting that a chronic inability to deal with uncertainty, which is core to indecisiveness, can actually hinder moral development. It can make it harder to move beyond simple rule following to more sophisticated principle-based ethical reasoning.
Wow. Okay, so putting it all together,
Right.
who stands to gain from this deep understanding of indecisiveness and who's potentially vulnerable?
Well, the beneficiaries are pretty clear. Those with the knowledge, the data, the technology. We see businesses using AI personalization boosting sales dramatically, like that Flipkart example, a 25% increase. Nudges can encourage good financial habits.
And the potential victim?
The individual, or even society as a whole, whose choices are shaped without full awareness or consent, leading them down paths that might not be in their own best interest, it creates a huge imbalance of power.
Could leaders exploit this?
Potentially, yes. Imagine deliberately overwhelming citizens with choices, using the paradox of choice to create paralysis, or to make a pre-chosen option seem like the only escape. That's a scary scenario for democracy.
It really is. Turning the science against the people it's supposed to help.
Which underlines the absolute need for strong ethical guidelines and constant vigilance.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. On a personal level, how can we fight back? How can we become more decisive?
It really takes a conscious effort on multiple fronts. A big part is tackling that indecisive mindset head-on.
Embracing uncertainty.
Yes, learning to tolerate ambiguity.
Yeah.
Making more balanced predictions instead of automatically jumping to the worst-case scenario. Building self-efficacy, that belief that you can handle the outcome. And crucially, seeing decisions not as final, perfect verdicts, but as steps, moving away from perfectionism.
Are there practical tools?
Sure, simple things like systematically listing pros and cons can help organize thoughts. Actively seeking out different viewpoints to challenge your own biases is huge. And learning to recognize when you're under pressure and shouldn't make a hasty decision. Even specific cognitive training can help minimize biases.
But how do you find the motivation for that deep change? Not just quick fixes.
That's the core challenge, isn't it? It requires self-awareness and a real commitment to changing those ingrained patterns.
And education seems key here too, not just for facts, but for that moral development you mentioned.
Absolutely. There's a direct link. Education helps us develop more sophisticated ethical reasoning. It builds the capacity to make choices that aren't just efficient, but also ethically sound. That contributes to a better society overall.
Moving beyond the individual, how can we design our environments, our workplaces, our communities to actually support better decision-making?
We need to think about choice architecture. Designing environments that subtly nudge us towards better choices without restricting freedom.
Like the retirement plans or cafeteria examples.
Exactly. Automatic enrollment, making healthy options the default or just easier to reach. Another key principle, especially against the paradox of choice, is relevance.
Fewer, but better options.
Precisely. Offering a smaller set of highly relevant choices is much more effective than overwhelming people. It boosts satisfaction and cuts down that decision fatigue.
What about group decisions? In companies, governments, how do we avoid collective paralysis?
Collaboration and diversity are absolutely essential. We know individual biases can get amplified in groups, especially if everyone thinks alike. That leads to groupthink or collective analysis paralysis.
So different perspectives are a necessity.
A cognitive necessity, not just a social nicety. Diverse viewpoints challenge assumptions, break impasses, and ultimately lead to more robust and effective collective decisions.
This feels like it points to a bigger idea about the society we want and the kind of leaders we need.
It does. History hammers this home. Truly effective leaders are often distinguished by their decisiveness, not rashness, but the ability to make clear, informed, ethical decisions at the right time.
It's a defense mechanism for society.
In a complex world, yes, a leader's capacity for timely, wise decisions is crucial protection against drift and paralysis. So the kind of culture we should foster is one that genuinely values and cultivates this kind of decisiveness in its leaders.
And tying it all back, how does this connect to the planet, to the environment?
Well, if you look at the cost of inaction on climate change, it's clear. Our collective indecisiveness has led us into a dangerous disconnect with nature's realities.
Our survival depends on better decisions.
Fundamentally, yes. Our well-being, our future, is tied to making choices that align with ecological balance. In that sense, human decisiveness isn't just a psychological trait, it's become an ecological imperative, essential for our species and the planet.
Wow. So today we've really journeyed deep into human indecisiveness, from the wiring in our brains and our hidden biases,
Through cultural influences, historical lessons, the huge role of AI.
to the profound impacts on our societies and our world. And we saw how AI isn't just watching, it's helping decode the very rules of how we choose, even when we choose badly.
But, and this is crucial, that power brings a massive ethical responsibility. How do we use these insights to help, not harm, to guide, not manipulate, to enhance autonomy, not erode it?
Transparency, accountability, human oversight.
They're non-negotiable, especially as AI gets more integrated into our lives.
So thinking about everything we've discussed, what's the one thing that really stands out to you, our listener?
Yeah, consider this. We've seen how deep the roots of indecisiveness go and how high the costs are, from personal struggles right up to global inaction on climate. If we understand the mechanics of indecision this well, what's your personal responsibility?
And our collective responsibility.
Exactly. To cultivate decisive ethical action in our own lives, yes, but also to demand it from our leaders. For our future, for the planet's future.
Because ultimately, understanding indecisiveness isn't just interesting, it's empowering. It's a call to action. For you, for leaders, for all of us.
To cultivate decisiveness not as rigidity, but as that dynamic ability to make informed, timely, ethical choices.
Because a truly healthy, educated, good society, maybe even a balanced universe, depends on us consciously choosing a more decisive path forward.
This is DigitView.